Tell me about the loneliness of good, He-Man. Is it equal to the loneliness of evil? A hero is only as good as his villain. Arguably, He-Man has one of the best villains conceived in the 80s. He is the skull-headed demon, the Lord of Snake Mountain, and the wielder of one half of the Power Sword. He is Skeletor. Obsessed with being crowned king of Castle Grayskull and learning its hidden secrets, is the leader of the evil warriors of Eternia and arch-nemesis of He-Man. Hi everyone, I'm Mac, and this is the countdown to Castle Grayskull. This is Skeletor.
By the power of Grayskull!
Like many of the characters of the Masters of the Universe line, Skeletor has numerous backstories. And as I'm sure you figured out by now, my favorite is the one originally given to us at the genesis of the toy line. His origins in the mini-comics is that Skeletor is actually a demon from another dimension. In ages past on Eternia, a hole was opened in the dimensional wall between Eternia and Skeletor's home. This happened during the Great Wars, an event that we only know has happened in the ancient history of Eternia. This makes Skeletor pretty old by the time we catch up with the story, indicating that he may even be immortal. Skeletor's initial motivations to gain entry into Castle Grayskull was to find the second half of the Power Sword that was hidden within the castle. With a complete Power Sword, he planned to open a doorway between Eternia and his world to bring his people through. Together, they would conquer Eternia. Skeletor initially desired not just to be crowned the king of Castle Grayskull and rule Eternia, he wanted to be reunited with his people. And what kind of people are they? Looking at Skeletor, we know he comes from another dimension. He is inherently imbued with magic, possibly immortal, and has a skull for a head. It's fair to say that Skeletor and his people were in fact demons. I say was because, as I said, his backstory has changed drastically over the years. And let's just get this out of the way. In previous videos, I've expressed my disdain for the Filmation series and what it did to the characters, especially ones like Skeletor, but I need to state that I really hate the Keldor backstory from the 2002 cartoon. If you're not familiar with the Keldor backstory, in a nutshell, Keldor was a blue-skinned sorcerer that gets his face burned off by acid, Two-Face style. Evil Lyn takes Keldor to Hordak, who saves his life by reducing his head to a hovering skull and renaming him Skeletor.
Jack is dead, my friend. You can call me Joker.
This has been the third issuing of Skeletor since Mega Construx introduced their Masters of the Universe line. The first one was a single-figure issue that was later repackaged in the Battle for Eternia Collector's Pack. That one resembled the original mini-comic rendition. The second Skeletor came with the Wind Raider attack set and resembled the original 5-inch vintage figure. With this figure, we also received Skeletor's half of the Power Sword. Now, to be honest, there's not much difference between the Battle for Eternia issue of Skeletor and the Castle Grayskull issue. In fact, the only difference is the coloring. The Battle for Eternia issue of the figure is on the left, and the Castle Grayskull issue on the right. And as you can see, the Castle Grayskull issue of the figure is much darker than the previous releases. His skin tone and armor are much darker in color, with the stone in the middle of his armor deeper red and stands out much better than the lighter colored counterpart. This coloring is very much in style of the way artist Alfredo Alcala drew and colored him in the initial mini-comics for the Masters of the Universe line. In fact, Alcala's entire color palette for the mini-comics was much darker than what the original vintage toys portrayed. For accessories, Skeletor comes with his signature armor. The armor is the same sculpt as we've seen before. As I said, the coloring is darker than previous releases, and that's about all that's different. Skeletor also comes with his Havoc staff. Looking at it, we see that it is the same dark purple as the rest of Skeletor's armor. I actually question the inclusion of the Havoc staff with this release of Skeletor. The figures that come with Castle Grayskull are supposed to be based off of the Alcala mini-comics, and in those, Skeletor never used his Havoc staff. Instead, he used a magical sword that he called his Energy Blade. Later in the comics, this was retconned to be Skeletor's half of the Power Sword. I would have rather had a reissue of Skeletor's Power Sword with this figure rather than the Havoc staff. There are other reasons, which I'll talk about in another video, but mainly I think it would have served the character better to get a new Power Sword with Skeletor. You can see that the current issue of the Evil Power Sword that we have doesn't quite match up in color to the rest of Skeletor's paint deco. Skeletor, like his previous issues, has all the articulation of a Mega Construx mini action figure. He also has the same loop on back of his armor with all the other versions have, so he can sheathe his Power Sword. Skeletor does not come with a named display base as the Battle for Eternia issue did. Instead, we get the same sand green piece that the other Castle Grayskull figures come with. Skeletor is an absolute must-have for your collection. As leader of the Evil Warriors, there is no one that can take his place. If you already have the Battle for Eternia issue of Skeletor, or the one that came with the Wind Raider attack set, then you really don't need this issue. As I said, he's just a darker paint deco than the others, but let's be honest, you're going to get him with Castle Grayskull, so if you buy the set, you'll get Skeletor. So thanks everyone for hanging around and talking about Skeletor with me. If you liked the video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ring the bell so you'll always be alerted when I post a new video. Go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know what you think of this new release of Skeletor, or what you think of the Keldor backstory for that matter. Remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Both are @BrickIntyre. Play well, everyone, and as always, thank you for watching.